When you look at what Texas A&M lost after the 2023 season, you look at a lot of portal entries, you look at a lot of players leaving the program. But the single biggest asset that Texas A&M lost was to the NFL draft in outside linebacker Edgerrin Cooper. The open field ability, the athleticism, the ability to cover ground and stay in plays, the pass rush. Edge brought a lot to the table. And that potential that we saw over the previous 2 seasons was finally realized. How did that happen? What clicked? It was the same defensive coordinator for the last 2 years, the same defensive scheme. He matured and he grew in the weight room, matured as a man, but for so much to improve so quickly, what else could it have been? Enter Taurean York, the late commit, the under-recruited talent out of Temple, Texas, made waves the second he stepped foot on campus. He had a knack for leadership, as we know, not only by example or the rah-rah ability that some players have, but Taurean York straight up called plays, got players aligned, and was an extension of the coaching staff on the field from day one. A very rare talent for such a young player, or a college player overall. And I would argue this. Taurean York gave Edgerrin Cooper the runway to excel the way he did in his junior season. Taurean got players aligned. He took those play call duties completely out of Edgerrin's hands. And Taurean also just did his job. He was at the right place at the right time, made sure the interior of that defense was sound. And Edgerrin was able to showcase his explosive talent and landed himself a second-round pick. Now, I don't want to take anything away from Edge. I'm sure Edge made Taurean look good in his own right. But since Buddy Johnson left the program in 2020, there's been a slew of subpar linebacker play, specifically in the run fit, gap fit department. This was largely alleviated last year with the duo of Taurean York and Edgerrin Cooper. But now, York will look to carry that lineage into the future with a host of new options at will linebacker. And that future looks really, really bright with York himself being only a sophomore, Sanford, a redshirt freshman, Chance Johnson, Tristan Jernigan, Jordan Lockhart as the young bucks in the room. But the question I've had is, who is the now? Who is the starter in 2024? And is it good enough? So today, let's explore the 2024 linebacker room. The second to last video in this series of preseason positional breakdowns. We'll be concluding it with defensive line at the end of this week. So make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe if you like this kind of content. Turn on post notifications so you can see my next video. We'll be making these preseason videos up until the start of the season, week 1 versus Notre Dame. We'll finish with these position breakdowns. We'll get into some more big picture stuff, some more fun videos after we get through these last couple of breakdowns. So without further ado, let's get into the 2024 linebacker room. Let's talk more about Taurean. So again, before Taurean took the helmet middle linebacker, A&M's had issues in this position group since Buddy Johnson left the program. And I'm going to tell you some stuff you already know about Taurean, but for the purposes of previewing this room, it's important to get a good grasp of what exactly he brings to the table. Extremely disciplined, technical, instinctual player. Though he wasn't perfect as a true freshman, and show me a true freshman who is, he was right far more often than he was wrong, especially for such a young player, and a player that was undersized and perhaps less athletic than you would expect for a starting SEC linebacker. He rarely overextended. He rarely took the bait. He rarely took the eye candy. He remained in his athletic stance and let plays develop where he was supposed to be, read plays appropriately. And one of his best attributes was on passing plays, and specifically play action plays, remaining disciplined, honoring runs, dropping to appropriate depth on passing plays, where he's able to corral the underneath stuff, but also forcing the quarterback to throw over him on the over-the-top stuff. We saw it many, many times in the 2024 season. He has a great feel for the game. And we know by now that he is an extension of the coaching staff on the field, calls plays, knows exactly what a defense is trying to accomplish versus a given offensive look, and he is the perfect candidate to be the man that has the headset communication system in the new era of college football where walkie-talkies, they're going to be in helmets now. Taurean York's going to have a walkie-talkie in his damn ear, and he's the perfect guy to have it because he already knows what he's seeing. He just needs the tips from the coaching staff to communicate with his teammates, something he's already very proficient in. So you have this boon on your defense. Whoever's next to Taurean York will know that the defensive play calling, the audibles, the switches, the alignment stuff, that's going to be taken care of by Taurean. Now, Taurean's not a perfect player. He has his limitations. He's obviously lacking in the athleticism department, as I just mentioned. Maybe not the biggest, maybe not the strongest, maybe not the tallest, maybe not the longest. But undersized linebackers have definitely made a name for themselves in the NFL. We have Hall of Famers who are smaller than Taurean York. They make up for it with instincts and, yes, strength. Taurean York will have some gains to make in that department, but we're confident under Tommy Moffitt that he will do just that. He's able to get swallowed up by offensive linemen at times. When they make contact, it can be hard for Taurean York to get off of those, but he makes up for it with his anticipation and his IQ on the field. So it's a give and a take there. Now, you can't really teach or add athleticism, but you can marginally improve by footwork and just general maturity. So again, Tommy Moffitt hopefully pays huge dividends and improves Taurean York to an even higher level his sophomore year. He's so young, so much more room for growth. We really hope the best is ahead for Taurean York, and we think it is. We don't think that it was just because he was next to Edgerrin Cooper that he was able to be this guy. We think Taurean York really elevated that whole linebacker group by himself as a freshman. And he and Edgerrin were such a dynamic duo, and it really kind of sucked to see the secondary kind of falter, or else you could have seen a really special defense last year. Very unfortunate. We move on. Who's going to play next to him? I mean, according to D coordinator and linebacker coach Jay Bateman, and based on what we were assuming going into the year, there are 3 strong candidates at the top of this competition to start at will linebacker. Damian Sanford, Scooby Williams, Solomon Deshields. Those are the 3 guys contending for that spot. And I would argue that even if you don't win that starting spot, all 3 of these guys are in the linebacker rotation in 2024. I think all 3 of these guys can play. So let's break down each individual that's in this competition, and then we'll talk about the room as a whole. Scooby Williams. If you didn't know, Scooby was a top 75 recruit as a true freshman. 4-star composite on 247, graded as a 97 out of 100, obviously, in the 247 composite. Very high-rated 4-star. He redshirted, then played a backup role, then he finally started the duration of last season, finishing 3rd on the team in tackles. He was more of an edge rusher coming out of high school, but Jay Bateman saw him as more as a second-level defender, playing true outside linebacker at 6'2". Not the longest-limbed player, but definitely enough size to be an outside linebacker. What he has is raw talent, raw ability, athleticism, speed, strength. He has all the measurables, maybe not the longest, like I said, but good in that department. He's strong. He's able to fight through contact and make plays. Very solid zone defender. Very secure tackler at only a 9% missed tackle rate. That's good for like top 10 in the country last year, I believe. He did have a weakness, though. He was not very disciplined in his gap assignment and gap discipline. And for an outside linebacker, he won't win a lot of one-on-one battles versus SEC offensive tackles. However, in Elko's scheme, he won't be asked to do that very much. I actually think a lot of his run game weakness can also be masked by playing next to a guy like Taurean York, who's going to alleviate a lot of that assignment stuff and just tell people what to do on the field, and he'll take care of his assignment for sure in his own right. I think that goes for any player who might be playing next to Taurean, but that could specifically help a guy with the weaknesses that Scooby Williams had. I think he might have the highest ceiling in the linebacker room, just based on his raw talent, his explosiveness, his tackling ability. I think he has a lot going for him, and he looked really good in the spring game. And, you know, Florida had a bad defense last year, and I think there were problems bigger than just 1 or 2 players with that defense. And I don't think Jay Bateman and Sean Spencer and Mike Elko would have brought him to Texas A&M, put him in that starting job battle, if they didn't believe that he could be a solid SEC starting linebacker. Right now, in my opinion, based on his SEC experience, based on him being here in spring, good spring game, fits well next to Taurean, I look at him as the leader of the pack, as the starter in the room right now. But Solomon Deshields brings some pretty good stuff from Pitt. Solomon Deshields is a serious contender to nab the starting spot too. Started 1 full season at outside linebacker. Now, before I looked into him, I thought he had started more than just 1 season, 1 full season. But he also brings great measurables, even taller and longer than Scooby Williams at 6'3", but some really good attributes as well. He measured as one of the best pass defending linebackers in the country last year, and an even better missed tackle percentage than Scooby Williams at 8.8% missed tackle percentage. That's good for 2nd in the country last year. And you know what? It's a really good number, but he wasn't going up against SEC competition. That's the big difference there. But here's the big hurdle, apparently, and we're learning this as camp kind of develops and we're hearing from the coaches. Even though Pitt ran a 4-2-5 defense, just like Elko will run at A&M, it was revealed by Bateman that Deshields has more of a learning curve than the other transfer linebacker in Scooby Williams. He has to get some more schematic and playbooking learning stuff out of the way before he can really be himself. And about 6 practices in, it does sound like he's rounding that corner. Elko is calling him the wild card of the room. Now, wild card, that's cool. That's really cool. I look at him as the second most likely starter right now, in front of Damian Sanford, behind Scooby Williams. I think there's no world where he doesn't play at least limited snaps in 2024, at least in a backup rotational role. I think you have to play a guy like this, even though this isn't his comfort zone, apparently. It's the same defense, so if one of you guys could clarify how exactly the job's different, maybe just his job and his assignments are different within the same defensive scheme, he has a learning curve to get over. But the raw talent, the tackling ability, the size, the measurables, great 1-2 combo at the top of that weak side linebacker rotation. Really, really exciting stuff between those two. And finally, Damian Sanford, guy that's been in the program for going on 2 years now. Minimal game experience, but has drawn praises in the development department. He's transformed his body in short order. He came in as a lanky linebacker at 6'2", 210, out of Katy, Texas, but has since totally transformed. He's now 230, and if you see glimpses of him in practice footage, he looks like a man now. The Moffitt effect, but more than the Moffitt effect, I think his trajectory really began before Tommy Moffitt even got here. Really, really hard worker in Damian Sanford here. And this is a guy that's made waves and a guy that's going to be really hard to keep off the field this season. A guy that you think can be productive in special teams or in a rotational role or has an outside chance of winning the job because they're still mentioning him as a contender to win this job. So don't put Damian Sanford aside just because he's a younger guy, just because he came in a little bit undersized. He's there now, size-wise, measurables-wise. He's on the outside looking in. But like I've said about all three, I think all three play. Now you have 3 really good options to fill the Edgerrin Cooper role this fall. For most teams, losing your all-SEC, NFL-ready linebacker and your senior backup, which I haven't even mentioned until right now, Chris Russell, who's been here forever, he's also out of the building. You only have one guy in your linebacker rotation left on the team. That's a scary personnel situation going into a year. It just is. You have to see it play out. Not you say that about any college position, but with so much unknown at one specific position group, that's scary. But I will say this. All of the buzz coming out of camp, all of the buzz coming from your insiders who are face-to-face with the team on a daily basis, no one has received any indication that linebacker will be a weakness this year. In fact, many are saying it will once again be a strength, more so now under Mike Elko and Jay Bateman. So it's a really, really exciting new room that's going to be booned by the fact that Taurean York is right there standing next to you. And another thing I haven't mentioned, this linebacker room is going to have an extremely elite defensive line in front of them that features 2.5 to 3 waves of very high-level SEC D linemen. That's just going to clear things up for the linebackers to make a ton of tackles this season. I think Taurean York could become a tackling machine now a year into the Moffitt method. Well, maybe a half year into the Moffitt method, 2 years into the college weight room, really maturing and gaining his footing even after a really productive, raw freshman year. The linebacker room is extremely exciting, but you can't talk about it without talking about what this D-line will be in front of it. And that's exactly what we'll do in the next video, guys. So, guys, thanks for watching this linebacker room breakdown. Shorter video because it's only a two-player position group. We really have some clarity about the contenders at the top of this room. Like I said, the future of the room looks really bright. But we'll conclude these discussions in the next show where we break down probably the most exciting room on the team, the A&M defensive line. So once again, like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks. Gig 'em.